Yeah, I'd just like to, again, thank you all for the invite here. I'm a real product of this watershed. I was born a few blocks over there in the general hospital. I grew up on a farm between Bonnecourt and Gibbons. I can remember coming home from school, from Bonnecourt school every day and loading my canoe on top of the station wagon, and Mom would drive me down to the Sturgeon River by Bonnecourt, and I'd drift down and shoot ducks in season, and then she'd pick me up. All my summers I spent living with my grandmother up on a reserve in northern Saskatchewan, up by Flin Flon, on the Sturgeon River, which is runs down through northern Saskatchewan, goes into the Big Delta down by the Paw. And now I live about 20 kilometers upstream. So my whole life I've been living on this watershed. I love it. I mean, this is, I think my grandmother was actually born in 1905 in the watershed. I remember in 75 she got a little medal from the Premier because she was the same age as Alberta for our 75th anniversary there. My daughter now works in Northern Banff as a biologist with Parks Canada, so we're like, I think she's 4th generation living in this watershed. It's a damn cold place. Stephen and I just spent the last week or so up in Wilmore, and there's still snow on the ground from the fall last week. That makes the fisheries unproductive, low sustainable. And as Stephen said, there's a hell of a lot of people out here. When I was born in Alberta, there was less than 1 million people, and my dad would not recognize Boyle, let alone... I used to go pheasant hunting with them down in Calgary. What is Calgary now? I mean, the province has changed. Heavy pressure, huge changes to the habitat. You just don't recognize Alberta anymore. And I think our successes are through groups like these WPACs where we're trying to educate the folks. And a big part of us, I really consider Stephen and myself to be we're all members of the same clan. We're the hunters, trappers, fishers, scouts. We get to spend time in the bush. We get to spend time seeing really cool things. We come back and tell these stories to you so you can integrate the stories in the collective knowledge of the clan so we can do something for the environment. To that end, I want to talk about David Thompson. He's a totally cool guy. This is one of his maps. This is his travels throughout North America. This is a great quote from a guy booked by the Shoe and Canoe. This guy was from London, had met David Thompson when David Thompson was in London, wrote about him, said, no living person possesses a tile of the information respecting the 100 Bay countries. He can create a wilderness and people it with warring savages, climb the Rocky Mountains with you in a snowstorm, so clearly and palpably that you can shut your eyes and hear the crack of the rifle or feel the snowflakes melt on your cheeks as he talks. So this summer, sort of as a homage to David Thompson, this is actually his original map. Incredible map maker. As you can see, this is the North Saskatchewan. This is the Edmonton area. Where are we here? That's Slave. This is Edmonton. This is Conjuring Creek. He mapped Conjuring Creek. Not only Conjuring Creek, he mapped the forks of Conjuring Creek going up, right? This guy traveled an incredible amount of country. So this summer, I had some time, so I headed up to, decided to go to House Pass, right? Where climbed the North Saskatchewan River right over into the BC into the Bladeberry. So I started heading up. Yeah, so this is me. I'm just by myself as a self-timer, so I'm hiking up and I had a little inflatable sort of raft, kayak in my pack. So I'm hiking up the river flats. It was really cool. I would inflate this raft and tie it to my pack. And then when I come to the part of the river that I had to cross, I just flip the pack off and sit in the kayak and paddle across and that stuff. Oh yeah, it was a good time. It took me, it was my little raft that I would work my way up the river. So it took, I worked my way up the North Saskatchewan to the Howes River, then up the Howes River to Freshfield Creek area, then up there to Howes Pass, and then across over to the Freshfield Glacier to where Freshfield Creek comes back down. So, if you ever want to go to Howes Pass, this is a selfie of me at Howes Pass. It is the least impressive pass in the Rockies. It's an opening in the forest about this big with this sign in it and a bench. There, you've just seen Howes Pass. But the really cool part is heading up. This is really what I call the headwaters of this watershed, headwaters of North Saskatchewan. Yeah, so I climbed up there. It took me 6 days to climb to the top of the watershed, inflated the kayak, loaded it in. I'm not sure if this I probably won't run it as a video. It took me 6 days to climb to the top. It took me 4 hours to come back down. I think in the Parks Canada trip report I wrote, difficult and exciting ride. It was just whitewater scooting right down. Yeah, and I was out there, I just had my little tarp camped up there. Gorgeous country. You could just scoop the water out of the creek, out of the river, out of the North Saskatchewan, out of the house and drink it. You could eat the fish, damn brook trout. Means that you don't eat them better. Yeah, I'm traveling light, so isn't this great? Just build a fire, lay flat rocks, cook the brook trout, fill it over the flat rocks of the fire, right? That's the Cafe Upper House River. As I say, there I am. I can drink the water. I can swim. Well, froze my ass off, but I did swim. Once unintentionally, actually, with that raft I swam. Drink the water, fish, swim. No treatment, just fine. Right? And I found some really cool things. Here's the Google Earth image of the Ice Parkway, Saskatchewan crossing. So this is the North Saskatchewan coming in from there. So I sort of hiked up through the forest. This took me like a day, and then I started crossing the river, and then this is the creek coming up by Freshfield, and then this is the Freshfield Creek that I rafted back down. I found some really cool stuff up there. I found, lake trout and mountain whitefish, bull trout up in Glacier. I found a new lake with lake trout in Alberta. Parks Canada had no idea. This was Outram Lake. We knew there was lake trout in there. This little lake here, no name, map, had no information that it was a lake, other than a dot on the map in Google Earth. I went there and I caught lake trout, bull trout, brook trout, mountain whitefish. I mean, how often can you say, I found a new lake trout lake in Alberta, right? Found bulls right up at the Freshfield, found brookies in that lake. That was the one I killed the brookies at. My daughter, she's a biologist in Parks Canada, went back up there with gill nuts. We helicoptered in, and I mean, they're not little lake trout. They're really lake trout. Isn't not that cool? This is some of the data that she got on the lakes back up in there, and she's also skied in with me. You go to Rock Lake up in the Athabasca drainage, and you ski into Jasper down through Willow Creek, and then we bushwhack our way up the other side of the Snake Indian. Nobody gets to the other side of the Snake Indian to a lake called Kidney Lake, and there's lake trout in there too. This is the size of fish, and this is the catch rate, sort of the abundance of fish. So the two lakes that you have to work your ass off to get to, Kidney Lake and Outram Lake up in Banff, these are the size of the fish. They're 45, 50 centimeter long lake trout, and they're really abundant. Where you got to ski or canoe into. Lakes like Minnewanka and Rock, can you see the yellow and red dots? I mean, the abundance is a tiny fraction of what it is in that backcountry, as the size is way smaller too. Rock Lake, the fish are only 35, 40 centimeters. She was catching, especially out of Outram, she was catching fish up to 70 centimeters. Where we don't have access, man, the fishing can be great. Kind of used to be that way around Edmonton. This is a quick shot of Edmonton. And not just in the main stem river, but in some of the tributaries too. Used to be pretty amazing. Here's a shot of, this is this is I think 1886, sturgeon caught in Saskatchewan and Edmonton, but we do have records from the Sturgeon River. I mean, duh. Sturgeon River, right? Or Nemeo. You guys have heard of Nemeo, that's a creek, Nemeo, for sturgeon. The cool thing is, these are amazing shots of really big fish, but if you read very closely on here, this is 43 pounds, this is 36 pounds. Neil Wall will talk about this, because I've been looking for this record of bull trout, but we know we've had photographs of bull trout at the mouth of White Mud Creek in that area back in the early days, and apparently up by Fort Saskatchewan, bulls used to come all the way back down here. I was actually talking to some farmers, one in particular, south of the international airport, and he talked when he was a kid, sounded like in the late 40s, early 50s, of walleye running up White Mud Creek, south of the airport, south of the international, running that far up. He said, what happened to those yellow fish? They were really good eating. We have stories of abundance of fish in other parts of the watershed too. This is a great story. This is in the Battle River. Sort of comes out of Battle Lake, runs through Pinoka, and runs through the big Four Nations Reserve back in Mahoisis, what we used to call Pomima country. Great quote from Harley Lewis at one of the Battle River WPAC meetings just before Christmas a few years ago. My grandfather took me down to the fish traps on the Battle, catch enough fish to fill our saddlebags, ride back for a big feed of fish with our families. From his description, they were gold-eyed. Not real fancy fish traps. This is just a photograph of fish traps down in the U.S., but it could be as simple as just sticking willow stakes in the river and guiding the fish into willow blocks or something that you could catch. Runs of fish running up the Battle River that you could eat. That was the picture of the watershed. Ran up into the 1970s. Here's a great shot of Dave Christensen. He said his first summer working for Fish and Wildlife was one of his best times. He said they sort of appeared at Headwaters. He was around at this time too, Ken and Dwayne. But he said, Dave said his first summer they gave him a canoe and a gill net and said, canoe the Battle River, tell us how it works. See you in September. Catching fish, talking to people, getting to learn how an whole ecosystem works. And that's the key part, I think, as a scout, hunter, fisher, trapper. We spend time on the water, but we also talk to people. And the locals told them how the big runs of goldeye were almost gone. You could catch decent numbers below Forestburg. Things were going downhill. This is 40 years ago. Big kills of pike in dried meat lake, low oxygen levels. Listen to stories about the sad state of the rivers. Things have really changed. And it's not a fantasy. There are places in this watershed, and I know them well, and my daughter knows them well, where you can drink the water, eat the fish, and swim. The water quality is just fine. It's still normal for us to do that. I was contacted by one of the big outdoor magazines in the States, and they said, you're a real wilderness traveler, we hear, what water treatment do you use? And I go, I use a cup. That's all I use for treatment. Like where I go, I just drink water. I boil it because I drink coffee a lot. But yeah, it's still normal to do that kind of thing. But we've really lost that. There's the Battle River, June 2009. Those are dead white suckers. When white suckers are dying, you got a problem. A real problem. This is the kind of stuff we'd see on the Battle River. Sewage going right into the river. I took this picture just upstream of my house. This creek runs right down the North Saskatchewan, right down in it. It was right across from Romania School. This is what we do to our watershed. That's just, we assume that that's okay. We've lost the concept that you should be able to drink, swim, eat the fish. It's like the Bruce Cockburn song, the trouble with normal is it always gets worse. We consider this to be somewhat normal. A lot of even the suckers that we're seeing have bad lesions and tumors. This is the Battle River in 2009. This is the Beaver River up in the Churchill watershed. But yeah, almost all the fish, or over nearly half the fish we saw had tumors and growths and fungal infections. I mean, they were, we all call them Blinky, the three-eyed fish. And that's really unusual. 42% of the suckers that we sampled up north of Bonnyville had lesions. This is not normal. When I tried to find out what's a normal rate of lesions and tumors and growth stuff in the white suckers, I came across this quote in Water Quality Research Journal of Canada, St. John River, New Brunswick. A significant number of white sucker were captured with lesions, 4 to 12%. They call that a significant number, had lesions. As lesions in this species are rarely reported. We had 10 times that in the Beaver River, and sort of thought it was normal, because that was sort of a baseline, yeah. That's just not right. We've done a lot of bad things to the river. I mean, we love it. We love it to death. This is the North Saskatchewan right by my house at Devon there. This was sort of a typical afternoon scene a few years back. People would just drive their cars right into the river. No sewage treatment, no outhouses. The cars would be parked. I think, Stephen, you took... When that was closed down, people really complained that what did they say? You cut our opportunities for recreation. Finally, yeah, what sort of broke the straw that broke the camel's back on that one was one of the trucks rolled and the gas tank dumped, and they had to shut the water treatment plant in Devon down for a while, and they realized that should probably stop. You know, but it should have stopped long before it got to that stage. I think organizations like you are really critical for the education to say this is no longer acceptable. We can't be doing this to the watershed. We talk about Headwaters protection. You know where I got these pictures from? The Off-Highway Vehicle Association website. Can you believe that? That's illegal. Public Lands Act says you shall not do that. I'm going on a backcountry trip in the South Boundary Country, spent a month walking back there, and the wardens, Jasper, were going to come in to give me a food cache, but they said we can't get our horses in up the southwest because the land was too destroyed. They were scared of their horses getting caught in the mud holes. So they had to quit using that access point because of this. When George Sterling and I brought this forward to the land manager in the area, we were mocked. When are we going to realize that we can't do that to our drinking water? And the consequences of that are pretty amazing. This is Dave Park and I going on the Battle River, just doing oxygen measurements. Here's a map of the Battle River. Starts up in Battle Lake, up in the Pigeon Lake country. The little symbols, the square symbols, are the amount of oxygen we found in the wintertime. The dead fish symbols mean no oxygen. And down at Camp Wainwright, we started to get some oxygen. I was a roommate with a guy named John Magnuson a couple winters ago. We were doing a climate change workshop up in Northern Ontario. And he's sort of the grandfather of limnology in really North America. He's the guy that Dave Schindler admires. Yeah. And I was telling him about, we got no oxygen, but if you're rivers, and he goes, no, rivers don't winter kill. Rivers can't winter kill. I go, well, I measured no oxygen. It was a concept he didn't know about. And to me, I thought it was normal. I thought everybody had rivers that winter killed. Well, they don't even winter kill. There's no fish in summer. And the Sturgeon River has no oxygen in the winter. Right? This is not normal. And it's in the foothills too. Is this not a great shot of George Sterling? We did a really cool study the last few years doing basically a report card on Alberta's fishes. We've broken the range of each fish up into a bunch of little watersheds, and we've given a report card to every little watershed. So this is the east slopes of Alberta. These are all the small watersheds that composed it that we ranked. And the North Saskatchewan watersheds are sort of in this range. This is the one that I hiked up into, this is the upper house. This is the historical status of bull trout, what we thought it was back sort of in the early years. Green is good, red is bad, black is really bad. That's what it was. This is what it is. Was, is. Was, is. You go to some of these watersheds like Wolf Creek, Rose Creek, and the water is green if there is water, right? We used to have bull trout in those systems. They're only bull trout healthy populations are where Sierra and I, my daughter and I, hike to, where we still find these great big great bull trout like this. This one is actually from the Athabasca watershed, and you recognize that. That's Rush My Head in the background, eh? Those big bulls are coming up to feed on the Swanee Mountain whitefish. Almost gone. Don't want to be a downer, though we do have good news stories. Thank you, Daryl, the king of sturgeon. Right? Sturgeon are really coming back. Back in the day, Edmonton used to save up its sewage. I believe, Gord Thompson, check me on this. Edmonton used to save up their sewage water all winter and sort of dump it in the spring freshet, and then we had pretty well no oxygen from Edmonton to the Saskatchewan border. Thank goodness that attitude's changed, and I believe you gave me a graph some time ago that just showed the water quality, the oxygen in the wintertime. No, summer oxygen just got better and better and better.
Winter oxygen.
Winter oxygen?
Yeah.
Yep, just kept getting better and better. So we think for most of the middle part of the last century, these animals were gone. By fluke, when was this? About late 80s, maybe some big adults moved back in and started to have kids. I think now we have 3-year classes. These wonderful big animals coming back. That was a great shot of Christina. It's an important job. But they're still nowhere near recovered. There's probably fewer than 100 adult female sturgeon in the river. We talk about there's thousands of fish, and it sounds really good. This is really cool. The city zoo put a sturgeon statue in front of the zoo. I think it was just this summer. And the scoots are fountains and water shoot. Have you been there, Daryl? Seen this? It is so cool. Water shoots out of these things, and kids are constantly playing on this sturgeon, standing there, and the water would shoot up this little girl's dress, and she bounced off, and the mothers would grab them. Yeah, it's just really cool. Sturgeon are a good news story, but my goodness, they're not recovered yet. This is a Wisconsin sturgeon management plan. Their goal is to get around 400 fish per kilometer. That's what they'd like to see in the sturgeon rivers down in that part of the world. 400 per kilometer. Our numbers in 2000, and I think this goes to 13 or 12, are 12 per kilometer. They've gone from 1 or 2 per kilometer up to 12, 15 per kilometer. Wisconsin is 400. So we're very pleased with the direction it's going, but there should be one hell of a lot more fish in the river. But we're going there. It's coming back. And we do have some really good news stories. This is a neat one. We often talk about our headwaters and how we're doing on headwater protection. In comparison to elsewhere, some of our headwater fisheries are still damn fine. This is a Spring Creek down in Montana, very famous as blue ribbon brown trout fly fishing. Yeah, really popular. People come from around the world to catch these bloody great big brown trout in these beautiful spring creeks. Here's some data from down in Montana. This is the size of brown trout. This is the number of fish per kilometer. So a few really big ones, 3 over 46 centimeters, those great big ones. This many, sort of 25 to 46 centimeters. They did a stocking project that actually didn't work because the brown trout were having enough babies on their own. So the blue and the red are what Montana size and abundance of brown trout are. There's the North Saskatchewan River back in '75 when we had pretty bad land use, pretty heavy grazing. Dwayne, you might have been involved in some of this, or even Ken. Back before we did a lot of the habitat work on the North Saskatchewan. Once we did that habitat work, you guys deserved a medal. There's the abundance of fish that came back in the North Saskatchewan. We still had fish there. All it needed was a little love and attention. And it's still been good. This is 95, 2005. We're still getting big fish numbers as comparable to the best brown trout fisheries in Montana. Things are doing damn fine in places. Right? And some of our other headwater streams are doing really fine. This is John Nishi down in the Beaver River. But down in the Crow's Nest Pass, this is 1970s to now. These are cutthroat trout catch rates, sort of angling catch rates, sort of abundance of fish. The abundance of fish has been going up. But what does that mean? In comparison to what Montana calls quality angling, which they say is 0.5 fish per hour, we're double or triple what some of the Montana folks say is a quality fishery. Some of those past headwater streams are doing very fine. That's for cutthroat. This is the Crow's Nest Pass rainbow fishery. Again, we parted around with the size when it's finally dropped it way down to mainly a very reduced bag limit, although those people just do catch and release. And the catch rates are going right up. Again, this is comparison to the Montana quality. It is really good fishing. Our headwaters are doing fine. The rest of our watershed is not. the question here now is, what have we done in the watersheds, and what are we supposed to be doing? What are the real actions we can do next?
So I have to apologize. I'm from Ontario.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yes, I spent the first part of my life in Ontario, and I grew up in central Ontario, a town called North Bay, and the lake that I was lucky enough to live by had wonderful water quality, had lake trout in it, and you go out canoeing any time of the year, and when you're thirsty, you tip your paddle up and you drink the water off the paddle. But in the 80s, we started to notice that the lake was getting greener and greener, and there was quite a bit of concern about that, and at that time the management agencies looked at the situation and they realized that there was a problem, that the lake was getting enriched. And so at that time what they did is they looked at the inputs of phosphorus and they looked at the outputs of the phosphorus from this lake, and they said, we will balance the budget, no more development in this watershed, because the town needs the water for domestic use, and we don't want to see this watershed change. And so this isn't me in a canoe, that's my son Sam, but we look a lot alike. And this is midsummer, and you can see 8-10 feet down into the water. However, when I look at the numbers from Isle Lake, and you look at the amount of phosphorus entering the lake versus the amount leaving, we're saving a lot of money, to use a financial analogy. So it's a 4 times loading factor. So it's a big problem, and we need to identify what the sources are and push the right management levers to make meaningful, measurable differences so that we can balance our budgets. Is what I've been, or what we've been talking with our stakeholders about. Things like not cutting aquatic vegetation, that's good. Rehabilitating shoreline vegetation is good. Restocking of fish is supposed to help, but you know, these aren't the big management levers we need to push. We really need to reduce our phosphate inputs, balance the budget in our lakes.